The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the street still smelled like wet concrete. Day wiped down the counter of the convenience store for the third time that night. It was almost 2 in the morning, and nobody had come in for the last hour. He didn't mind. The quiet nights gave him time to think, to study, to plan for a future that seemed far away. He was reaching for his textbook when he heard it. A soft sound, like a whimper, coming from the alley behind the store. Day paused. Sol was usually safe, but strange sounds at 2 in the morning were never a good sign. He should ignore it. Go back to his studying, mind his own business like everyone else did in this city. The sound came again. Quieter this time, almost like a child crying. Day cursed under his breath and grabbed the flashlight from under the counter. He unlocked the back door and stepped into the alley. The beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness, bouncing off wet walls and overflowing dumpsters. For a moment, he saw nothing. Then the light caught something that made him freeze. A small figure huddled behind the dumpster. A child. Day moved closer, his heart beating faster. The child looked up at him with wide eyes that reflected the light like a cat's. That was the first strange thing. The second was her clothes. They looked like they were made of metal and fabric mixed together, shimmering with colors that shifted when she moved. The third strange thing was her skin. Under the flashlight, it had a faint glow to it, like pearl. "Hey," Day said softly, crouching down. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" The girl stared at him. She couldn't be more than 8 years old. Her dark hair was tangled and wet. She was shivering. When she spoke, the words came out broken and mixed with sounds he had never heard before. Some of it was Korean, but most of it was something else entirely. "Lost," she managed to say in Korean. "Cannot find." She touched something on her wrist. It looked like a bracelet, but it was glowing with a weak blue light that kept flickering. She tapped it desperately, and each time she did, her eyes filled with more fear. Every logical part of Day's brain told him to call the police. This was clearly something beyond his understanding. But when he looked at the girl's terrified face, he saw only one thing, a scared child who needed help. "It's okay," he said gently. "You're safe now. Come inside. You're freezing." The girl hesitated. She studied his face for a long moment, as if trying to decide if she could trust him. Then, slowly, she nodded. Day led her into the store through the back door. Under the bright lights, she looked even more unusual. Her eyes were larger than normal, with pupils that adjusted to the light in a way that human eyes didn't. Her skin had that strange shimmer, like oil on water. But she was just a child, and she was scared. He grabbed a towel from the storage room and wrapped it around her shoulders. Then he took her to the small break room in the back. She sat on the plastic chair, still shivering, still touching that device on her wrist. "Are you hungry?" Day asked. She looked at him with confusion. He mimed eating, and her face brightened. She nodded quickly. Day brought her a cup of instant noodles and a chocolate bar. She stared at the food as if she had never seen anything like it before. She picked up the chocolate first, sniffed it carefully, then took a tiny bite. Her eyes went wide with surprise, and she took another bite, bigger this time. The noodles were more difficult. She didn't seem to understand how to use chopsticks. Dee showed her, but she struggled. Finally, he got her a fork. She ate slowly, examining each bite before putting it in her mouth. It was like watching someone from another world try Earth food for the first time, because that's exactly what it was. The realization hit Day like cold water. This wasn't a lost child from another city or another country. The strange clothes, the glowing skin, the reflecting eyes, the device on her wrist that looked like nothing he had ever seen. This child was not from Earth. He should have been scared. He should have run. Instead, he felt a strange sense of wonder. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She looked up from the noodles. "Kira," she said clearly. Kira, Day repeated. I'm Day. Nice to meet you. She seemed to understand the gesture when he offered his hand. She shook it carefully, as if she had learned about this custom but never done it before. Over the next hour, Day tried to understand her situation. She kept pointing at the device on her wrist and saying words he didn't know. She drew pictures on a piece of paper. Strange buildings that looked like crystals, trees that seemed to glow, symbols that might have been writing. One thing became clear. She was trying to find something or someone. The device on her wrist was important. It was supposed to help her, but it wasn't working properly. Day's shift ended at 6 in the morning. He should hand Kira over to someone else, to the authorities, to people who knew how to handle situations like this. But when he thought about government agents taking this scared child away, putting her in some facility, studying her like a science experiment, his stomach turned. He made a decision that would change everything. Come on, he said, holding out his hand. My apartment isn't far. We'll figure this out there. Kira looked at his hand, then at his face. Whatever she saw there must have reassured her, because she took his hand without hesitation. They walked through the early morning streets of Seoul. The city was just starting to wake up. A few early workers hurried to the subway. A street cleaner worked his way down the sidewalk. Nobody paid attention to Day and the small girl beside him. They saw what they expected to see. A man and his daughter, maybe. Nobody looked close enough to see how strange she really was. Day's apartment was small and messy, but it was warm. Kira looked around with wide eyes, touching things carefully. His laptop, his books, a small plant on the windowsill. Everything seemed to fascinate her. You can sleep on the bed, Day said, pointing. I'll take the couch. Kira didn't argue. She climbed onto the bed, still wearing her strange clothes, still clutching that device on her wrist. Within minutes, she was asleep, exhausted beyond words. Day sat on the couch and stared at the ceiling. He had just brought an alien child to his apartment. An actual alien, from space. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was possibly the stupidest thing he had ever done. But when he looked at Kira sleeping peacefully for the first time in who knows how long, he knew he had made the right choice. Whatever came next, he would figure it out. Humans were good at that. Day woke up to the sound of things moving in his apartment. For a moment, he forgot everything that had happened. Then he remembered. The alien child. Kira. He sat up quickly and looked around. Kira was standing near his bookshelf, running her fingers along the spines of his books. She pulled one out and opened it, tilting her head as she looked at the Korean text. Her device was still on her wrist, still flickering weakly. Good morning, Day said. Kira jumped, startled. Then she smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. She held up the book and said something in her language, then added in broken Korean, Pictures of thoughts? Books, Day said. We use them to share stories and information. She nodded slowly, like she was filing this information away. She put the book back carefully and moved to his desk. His phone was there, and she picked it up with both hands, examining it closely. The screen lit up when she touched it, and she gasped with delight. Day got up and made them breakfast. Just simple toast and eggs, but Kira watched him cook with intense fascination. She seemed amazed by the toaster, jumping back when the toast popped up. When he gave her the plate, she examined the eggs carefully before taking a bite. She made a face, clearly not sure if she liked them, but she ate anyway. After breakfast, Day tried to learn more about her situation. He used his phone's translation app, but it was useless for whatever language she spoke. So he used pictures and drawings instead. Slowly, piece by piece, a story emerged. Kira drew a picture of what looked like a spaceship. She made whooshing sounds and moved her hand through the air, then made an explosion sound and crashed her hand down. The ship had broken, fallen. She had been on it with her mother. Her mother. Kira's whole face changed when she talked about her. She drew a tall figure, strong and protective. She kept saying a name that sounded like Rena. Then she pointed at the device on her wrist and said, "Mother, find me," in careful Korean. The device was a beacon, a way for her mother to locate her, but it was broken, or at least not working properly. Kira kept tapping it with increasing frustration, her eyes filling with tears. Hey, Day said softly. "It's okay. Maybe I can help fix it." Kira looked at him with hope in her strange, beautiful eyes. Day was not an engineer. He fixed convenience store equipment sometimes, and he had watched a lot of YouTube videos about electronics. But this was alien technology. Still, he had to try. He examined the device carefully. It looked like a bracelet made of silver metal, but it was warm to the touch and had no visible seams. The blue light inside pulsed weakly. He couldn't take it apart without risking breaking it completely. An idea came to him. Maybe the problem wasn't the device itself. Maybe it was interference. He grabbed his phone and called his friend Junho. "Day, it's 10 in the morning. Why are you calling me?" Junho's voice was heavy with sleep. "I need your help. Can you come over, bring your electronics kit?" "What? Why?" "Please, Junho, it's important. I'll explain when you get here." Junho grumbled, but agreed. He arrived 30 minutes later, carrying a backpack full of equipment. He was a computer science student who spent most of his free time taking things apart and putting them back together. If anyone could help, it was him. When Junho walked in and saw Kira sitting on the couch, he froze. "Day," he said slowly. "Who is this?" "This is Kira. She needs help. Sit down." "Is this your cousin or something? Why the weird clothes?" Day took a deep breath. "Junho, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound crazy, but I need you to trust me and keep this absolutely secret." Over the next 10 minutes, Day explained everything. The alley, the strange clothes and glowing skin, the device, his theory about what Kira really was. Junho listened with his mouth hanging open. When Day finished, Junho walked over to Kira and looked at her closely. "The eyes," he whispered. "They actually reflect light. And the skin, holy." He turned to Day. "This is insane. This is actually insane. We should call someone." "Who? The government? They'll take her away and study her like a lab rat. She's just a kid, Junho. She's scared and trying to find her mother." Junho ran his hands through his hair. Then he laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. Okay, so we're helping an alien. This is happening. Show me the device." They spent the next 2 hours working on the beacon. Junho examined it from every angle, testing it with his equipment. The device was putting out a signal, but it was weak. Too weak to reach very far. "I think Earth's atmosphere is interfering," Junho said. "Or maybe our magnetic field. Whatever it's trying to broadcast can't get through properly." "Can we boost it?" Day asked. "Maybe, if we create a kind of amplifier." Junho started pulling things out of his bag. Wire, small circuit boards, batteries. "This is all theoretical, you understand. I have no idea if this will work." They worked through the afternoon. Kira watched with intense interest, sometimes pointing at things and saying words in her language. She seemed to understand what they were trying to do. Once, she showed them how to open a panel on the device that neither of them had noticed. Inside were circuits that looked nothing like human technology. Finally, Junho rigged up a mess of wires and components around the device. "Try it now," he told Kira. She tapped the device. The blue light pulsed, brighter than before. Then it held steady, glowing strong and clear. Kira's face lit up with joy. She said something in her language that was clearly "thank you," then hugged Day tightly. "Her mom should be able to find her now," Junho said. "If she's looking." "She's looking," Day said, watching Kira's happy face. "A mother always looks for her child." They ordered food for dinner, fried chicken and pizza. Kira loved the chicken, less so the pizza. She tried to teach them words in her language. The word for friend sounded like Kelna. The word for thank you was Mishara. She pointed at the stars through the window and said, Vilani, touching her chest, her people. As the evening went on, Day felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride that they had fixed the beacon, worry about what would happen next, and a surprising sadness at the thought of Kira leaving. In just one day, he had grown attached to this strange, wonderful child from another world. Kira fell asleep on the couch around 9, exhausted from the emotional day. Junho left shortly after, making Day promise to call him when anything happened. "You did a good thing," Junho said at the door. "A stupid, dangerous, impossible thing, but a good thing." After Junho left, Day sat in his chair and watched Kira sleep. The beacon on her wrist glowed steadily now, sending its signal out into the night. Somewhere out there, her mother was receiving it. Somewhere out there, someone was coming. Day wondered what kind of person Kira's mother was. Would she be grateful? Relieved? He imagined a tearful reunion, maybe some kind of reward, though he didn't want one. He just wanted to see Kira safe. He had no idea that what was coming was far more dangerous than he could ever imagine. The beacon pulsed in the darkness, calling across the stars. And somewhere in the city, something responded. The next evening started normally. Day made dinner while Kira sat at his small table, drawing pictures of her homeworld. She had been more relaxed all day, smiling more, clearly feeling safer now that the beacon was working. Every so often, she would check the device on her wrist, and each time, it glowed back at her with steady blue light. Day was cutting vegetables for a simple stew. Nothing fancy, just something warm and filling. Through the window, Soul's lights sparkled in the darkness. Traffic sounds drifted up from the street below. Everything felt peaceful, normal. He should have known better. One moment, he was alone in the kitchen. The next moment, he felt it. A presence. The air itself seemed to change, becoming heavier, colder. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Every instinct in his body screamed danger. Day turned around slowly. A woman stood in his kitchen. She hadn't come through the door. She hadn't made a sound. She was just there, as if she had appeared out of nothing. She was tall, taller than any woman Day had ever seen. She wore armor that seemed to be made of shadows and metal mixed together, absorbing the light around it. Her face was beautiful but cold, with the same large eyes as Kira, the same shimmering skin. But where Kira's eyes held innocence, this woman's eyes held something far more dangerous. They were the eyes of a hunter, a killer. In her hand was a weapon. Day had never seen a gun like it before. It hummed with a low sound that made his bones vibrate. Energy crackled along its surface in patterns of blue and silver. The weapon was pointed directly at his chest. "Step away from my daughter," the woman said in perfect Korean. Her voice was calm, controlled, and absolutely terrifying. "Now—" Day couldn't move. His legs felt frozen. His heart hammered in his chest so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. This was Kira's mother. This was Reina. "Mama!" Kira's voice broke the moment. She ran from the table, past Day, straight to the armored woman. She crashed into her mother's legs, crying and speaking rapidly in their language. Reina's face softened for a moment. She touched Kira's head with her free hand, her fingers gentle. But her weapon never moved from Day. Her eyes never left him. Even while comforting her daughter, she watched him like a hawk watches a mouse. She listened to Kira's excited explanation, her expression unreadable. Then she looked around the apartment with those sharp, calculating eyes. Day realized she wasn't just looking. She was analyzing, scanning. The air around her shimmered slightly, and he understood. She had technology he couldn't even imagine. She was learning everything about him, his apartment, maybe even his entire life in seconds. "You took my daughter," Reina said flatly. I helped her, Day managed to say, though his voice shook. She was lost, scared, cold. I just wanted to help. You concealed an alien life form. You repaired classified technology. You exposed your species to knowledge they are not ready for. Each word was like a hammer blow. These actions have consequences. Day's blood ran cold. He understood what she wasn't saying. He had seen too much, known too much. In the movies, this was where witnesses were eliminated, made to disappear, and Rena looked very capable of making people disappear. I didn't tell anyone, Day said quickly. Well, my friend Junho helped fix the beacon, but he won't say anything. We just wanted to help Kira find you. That's all. Rena's eyes narrowed. Others know. It wasn't a question. Somehow she already knew about Junho. Maybe her scanner had found Junho's fingerprints in the apartment. Maybe she had hacked his phone. Either way, she knew. The weapon in her hand shifted slightly, and Day saw her finger move toward the trigger. His whole life flashed before his eyes. 24 years. Not very long. There were so many things he still wanted to do, so many places he wanted to see. A knock on the door made everyone freeze. Day, you home? Junho's voice called from outside. I brought more equipment. Thought we could improve the beacon signal even more. No. Dai's heart sank. This was the worst possible timing. Reina's weapon moved, tracking toward the door, toward Junho. Her face showed no emotion, just cold calculation. 2 witnesses instead of 1. The math probably said eliminate both. Something inside Day snapped. He didn't think. He just moved. He stepped between Rena and the door, putting his body in the line of fire. His hands were shaking, his knees felt weak, but he stood firm. Don't, he said quietly. Please, he's innocent. He just wanted to help, same as me. Rena stared at him. Really stared, like she was seeing him for the first time. You would die for a friend? Wouldn't you? Day shot back. Something flickered in Rena's eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. Kira tugged on her mother's armor, speaking urgently in their language. She pointed at Day, at the kitchen where he had been making food, at the couch where she had slept. She was defending him. A child defending the human who had helped her. The knock came again. Day, everything okay in there? Just a minute, Day called out, his voice cracking. He looked back at Rena. Let me send him away, please. He doesn't need to see anything. He can leave, and you'll never have to worry about him. Rena studied him for a long moment. The weapon was still pointed at him, still humming with deadly energy. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. Day walked to the door on shaking legs. He opened it just a crack. Junho stood there with his backpack, smiling. Hey, I was thinking about the signal problem, and I had this idea about— Not now, Day interrupted. Sorry, Junho. Family emergency. I need to handle something. Can you come back tomorrow? Junho's smile faded. He looked at Day's face, saw something there that worried him. Are you okay? You look really pale. I'm fine. Really. Just need to deal with something personal. I'll call you tomorrow, okay? Junho hesitated, but finally nodded. Okay, but call me if you need anything at all. I will, thanks. Day closed the door and locked it. He leaned against it for a moment, breathing hard. When he turned back around, Rena was still watching him, but something had changed in her expression. You protected him, she said slowly. You put yourself in danger to save your friend. Of course I did, Day said, finding some strength in his voice. That's what people do. That's what humans do. Rena tilted her head slightly, like she was processing information. Around her, the air shimmered again. Data flowing, calculations running. She was accessing Earth's networks, Day realized, learning about humanity, about what kind of species they were. Kira pulled on her mother's hand again, speaking in rapid words. Rena listened, then looked down at her daughter. She said something back, a question. Kira nodded enthusiastically and launched into another explanation, gesturing at Day the whole time. Finally, Rena's weapon lowered. Not all the way, but no longer pointed directly at Day's heart. It was a small mercy, but Day felt like he could breathe again. My daughter says you fed her, gave her shelter, fixed her beacon, protected her. Rena's voice was still cold, but there was something else in it now. Confusion, maybe. She says you asked for nothing in return. She needed help, Day said simply. That's all that mattered. Rena stared at him for another long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She lowered her weapon completely and attached it to her armor. The humming stopped. The immediate threat was gone. But Day knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The weapon was no longer pointed at Day, but he still felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. Rena hadn't holstered it. She had just lowered it. That meant she was still deciding. Still calculating whether he was a threat that needed to be eliminated. Day knew he had to do something, say something. But what do you say to an alien assassin who could kill you with a thought? He did the only thing that made sense to him. He started talking. I understand why you're worried, Day said, keeping his voice calm and steady. I know how this looks. A human finding your daughter, learning about your species, your technology. From your perspective, I'm a security risk. Rena's eyes narrowed slightly. She was listening. But let me tell you about humans, Day continued. We're not perfect. We have wars. We fight over stupid things. We make mistakes. But we also have this thing about helping people, especially kids, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's dangerous. He gestured around the apartment. I'm nobody special. I work at a convenience store. I live in a tiny apartment. I have student loans I'll be paying off for years. But when I saw Kira scared and alone in that alley, I didn't think about the consequences. I just thought about helping her. Kira looked up at her mother and said something in their language. Rena responded without looking away from Day. A conversation was happening that he couldn't understand, but he could see Kira's passion in her gestures. She was still defending him. My daughter says you gave her chocolate, Rena said. There was the smallest hint of something in her voice. Amusement, maybe. It was all I had, Day said with a small smile. She seemed to like it. She says you made her laugh, that you tried to teach her to use chopsticks and failed very badly. Despite the tension, Day laughed. Yeah, that was pretty bad. She's better with a fork. Rena was silent for a moment. The air around her shimmered again, and Day realized she was still scanning, still learning. About him, about humanity, about Earth. I have been reading your species' history, Rena said finally. You are violent, destructive. You war among yourselves constantly. You damage your own planet. Your technology is primitive. Your societies are unstable. She paused. You should be classified as a pre-contact species. Dangerous and unready. Each word felt like a nail in a coffin. Day's heart sank. This was it. She was justifying what she was about to do. But then Rena continued, and her voice was different, puzzled. Yet, I also see your art, your music, your stories. You send messages into space hoping to find friends. You create organizations dedicated to peace. You have people who spend their entire lives trying to save animals that are not even your own species. She looked directly at Day. You have people who help lost children in alleys at 2 in the morning, even when those children are clearly not human. Day's breath caught. Was that hope in her voice? I don't understand your species, Rena admitted. My analysis shows you should be selfish, self-preserving, logical, but you are not. You helped my daughter with no expectation of reward. You protected your friend with your own body. You face me knowing I could kill you, and you speak of hope. She touched something on her armor, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. Images flowed past, humans helping each other in disasters. Doctors traveling to poor countries to provide free care, people rescuing animals from floods, strangers donating organs to save lives, volunteers teaching children to read, acts of kindness, great and small, from every corner of Earth. "This is statistically unusual," Rena said quietly. "Most species do not behave this way. Most species prioritize survival above all else. But humans," she gestured at the images, "humans seem to prioritize something else, something my people do not have a word for." "Compassion," Day said softly. "Empathy. Hope." "Yes." Rena closed the holographic display. "My people are warriors. We are strong, logical, efficient. We have survived in a dangerous galaxy by being harder and smarter than everyone else. But we have also become cold. We calculate everything, trust nothing. We see threats everywhere." She looked down at Kira, who was watching both of them with wide eyes. "When I got Kira's beacon signal, I was terrified," Rena continued. "I thought she had been captured, studied, hurt. I came here ready to destroy anyone who had touched her. But instead, I find she was protected by a convenience store worker who gave her chocolate and taught her to laugh." Day saw something he never expected to see. Rena's eyes glistened slightly. She was fighting back tears. "My daughter was lost on an alien world," Rena said, her voice rough with emotion. "And the first thing a human did was help her, not capture her, not report her, not try to profit from her, just help her." She holstered her weapon completely. The sound of it clicking into place was the most beautiful thing Dee had ever heard. "I came here to eliminate a security risk," Rena said, "but I realize now that would be eliminating exactly the kind of person the galaxy needs more of." Day felt his knees go weak with relief. He had to sit down on the couch before he fell down. "So you're not going to kill me?" "No." Rena almost smiled. "You are too valuable to kill." Kira ran to Day and hugged him tightly. He hugged her back, feeling tears sting his own eyes now. He had been so scared, but now he was just relieved and exhausted and slightly hysterical. "Can I ask you something?" Day said, looking up at Rena. "Yes." "What are you exactly? I mean, I know you're Kira's mother, but you seem like more than that." Rena was quiet for a moment. "I am what my people call a blade, a protector, a warrior. I eliminate threats to my species." She looked at her daughter. "I was escorting Kira to a diplomatic meeting when our ship was attacked. We crashed on your world. I thought I had lost her." "A diplomatic meeting? So your people know about Earth?" "We have been watching your species for many years," Rena admitted, "debating whether to make contact. Some of my people think humans are too dangerous, too unpredictable. They want to wait until you are more developed." "But you don't think that?" Day asked. Rena looked at him with those strange, beautiful eyes. "I did think that. Until tonight. Until I saw a human risk everything to protect both my child and his friend. Until I saw kindness where I expected violence." She walked to the window and looked out at Seoul's glittering lights. "My people have a saying. Strength is the only currency that matters in the galaxy. But watching you tonight, I learned something. True strength is not just about weapons and armor. True strength is choosing kindness when it would be easier to choose fear." She turned back to face Day. "I am going to report this encounter to my people, but not as a security breach. I am going to tell them that humanity is ready for contact. That I have met humans who embody the values we claim to respect but have forgotten how to practice." Day's eyes widened. "You mean actual first contact? With your whole species?" "Yes. It will take time. Probably months. But it will happen." Rena reached into her armor and pulled out a small crystal device. This is a translator. It will allow you to speak my language and understand it. And it is also a beacon. When official contact happens, you will be among the first humans to know." She handed it to Day. The crystal was warm in his hand, pulsing with a soft light. "You earned this," Rena said. "You may have just changed the future of both our species." Day stared at the crystal, overwhelmed. "I just helped a lost kid." "Yes," Rena said softly. "You did. And sometimes that is all it takes to change everything." The next hour felt surreal. Rena stayed in the apartment, asking Day questions about humanity, while Kira showed her mother all the drawings she had made. Day made tea, which Rena examined with the same careful curiosity Kira had shown with the chocolate. She took a sip and seemed surprised that she liked it. "We have something similar on my world," she said, "but ours is made from crystallized plant sap. This is different." "Good." Day learned things, too. The Villani were an ancient species, much older than humanity. They had been spacefaring for thousands of years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had fought wars that humans couldn't even imagine. And they were tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being alone. They were looking for allies, for friends. But finding species they could trust was rare. "Most young species are aggressive," Rena explained. "They see the galaxy as something to conquer, resources to claim, others to dominate. It takes a long time for species to grow beyond that. If they survive long enough." "And humans?" Day asked. "What do you think of us now?" Rena looked at him thoughtfully. "I think humans are chaotic, unpredictable. You have not yet decided what kind of species you want to be. You could become conquerors or peacemakers, destroyers or protectors." She smiled slightly. "But meeting you gives me hope that you will choose wisely." As the night grew later, Kira started to fall asleep against her mother's side. Rena stroked her daughter's hair gently, and Day saw the warrior become just a mother, relieved to have her child back. "We should go," Rena said quietly. "Our people will be searching for us. I need to report what happened and begin the contact process." Day nodded, even though he felt sad. He had only known Kira for 2 days, but he would miss her. Kira woke up enough to hug Day goodbye. "Kelna," she said, using the word she had taught him. "Friend." "Kelna," Day repeated, hugging her back. "Mishara." "Thank you." Rena stood and offered her hand in a human gesture. Day shook it, surprised by how strong her grip was. "You did something important, Day," she said seriously. "You showed mercy to someone who was not your own. You protected the weak. You chose kindness over fear. These are qualities my people respect deeply, even if we do not always practice them ourselves." "Will I see you again?" Day asked. "Yes. When the official contact mission arrives, you will be there. I will make sure of it." She paused. "And Day, thank you for saving my daughter, for showing me that there is still good in this galaxy." She touched something on her armor, and suddenly the air around them shimmered. Day felt a strange pulling sensation, like reality itself was bending. Then, between one blink and the next, they were gone, just vanished. The apartment was empty and quiet again. Day stood there for a long moment, staring at the spot where they had been. Then he looked down at the crystal translator in his hand. It was real. All of it had been real. He called Junho immediately. "Day? It's 3 in the morning. What?" She came. "Kira's mother. It's over. We're safe." There was a long silence. Then Junho said, "I'm coming over. Right now. You're going to tell me everything." They stayed up until dawn, Day explaining everything that had happened. Junho listened with wide eyes, occasionally interrupting with questions. When Day finished, Junho just sat back and shook his head. "We helped start first contact with aliens," he said in wonder. Actual first contact. Because you decided to help a lost kid. Yeah, Day said, feeling the weight of it. I guess we did. The next 6 months were the strangest of Day's life. He went back to his normal routine, working at the convenience store, studying, living his ordinary life. But the crystal translator sat on his bedside table, reminding him that nothing was ordinary anymore. Sometimes, late at night, he would take out the crystal and just hold it. He wondered about Kira, if she was happy, if she told her friends about the human who gave her chocolate. He wondered about Rena, and if she was really going to keep her promise. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon in June, the crystal began to glow. Day picked it up with shaking hands. A voice spoke in his mind, clear as day, speaking Korean but with Rena's accent. Day, official contact will happen in 3 days. Seoul, the location coordinates are being transmitted to your device. Be ready. The world is about to change. 3 days later, Day stood in a secured area near Seoul's City Hall with Junho beside him. Government officials rushed around them. News crews were setting up equipment. The whole world knew what was about to happen. After months of careful negotiation and preparation, the Villani were making official first contact with Earth. The sky above the city began to shimmer. A ship materialized, massive and beautiful, looking like it was made of silver light and crystal. It descended slowly, gracefully, coming to rest in the center of the plaza. The crowd gasped, cameras flashed, history was being made. A ramp extended from the ship. Figures emerged, tall, graceful, wearing formal robes that shimmered with colors Day had never seen before. The Villani delegation, and at the front, holding the hand of a small girl, was Rena. Kira saw Day immediately. She broke free from her mother's hand and ran toward him, ignoring protocol, ignoring the cameras, ignoring everything. She crashed into him with a hug, laughing and crying at the same time. "Kelna!" she shouted. "Day!" Day hugged her back, tears streaming down his face. Around them, people were cheering. This was the moment. The image that would define first contact. Not politicians shaking hands, not formal declarations, but a human and an alien child, reunited as friends. Rena walked over more slowly. She wore formal robes now instead of armor, but Day could still see the warrior in her eyes. She placed her hand over her heart in what he now knew was a Villani gesture of respect. "Hello again, Day," she said. The translator crystal in his pocket hummed, letting him understand her perfectly. "Hello, Rena. I told you we would meet again. I keep my promises." The formal ceremony began. Speeches were made in multiple languages. Treaties were signed. Leaders of both worlds spoke about peace and cooperation and a bright future among the stars. It was all very official and important. But later, after the formalities, there was a smaller gathering. Day, Junho, Kira, Rena, and a few other Villani and human representatives. They sat together in a quiet room, sharing food and stories. Kira showed everyone her drawings from her time on Earth, and the Villani were fascinated by human culture. "You know," one of the Villani diplomats said to Day, "there was significant debate about making contact with humanity. Many believed you were too young, too unstable, but Rena argued passionately on your behalf. She told us about a human who helped a lost child without hesitation, who risked his life to protect others, who showed that humanity's greatest strength was not violence, but compassion." The diplomat smiled. Her testimony changed many minds. "You are the reason we are here, Day. You and your kindness." Day felt overwhelmed. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," Rena said gently. "You did what a good person would do. There is a difference." As the evening went on, Day looked around the room. Humans and aliens talking and laughing together, building bridges between worlds, all because he had decided to help a scared child in an alley. Kira came and sat beside him, leaning against his side like she used to on his couch. "Happy?" she asked in careful Korean. Day smiled and put his arm around her shoulders. "Yeah, Kira. I'm happy." "Me too, you good human. Best human." "Thanks, kid. You're pretty great yourself." Through the window, he could see the Villani ship still resting in the plaza, its lights reflecting off the buildings of Seoul, a symbol of something new, something hopeful. Humans were no longer alone in the universe. They had friends among the stars, and it had all started with one simple choice: to help someone in need. Raina came over and stood beside them, looking out at the same view. "You know what happens next?" she asked. "What?" Day asked. "Humans will want to explore, to travel among the stars, to meet other species. Are you ready for that?" Day thought about it, about all the wonders waiting out there, all the mysteries and adventures and challenges. It was scary. It was overwhelming. It was wonderful. "Yeah," he said finally. "I think we are." Rena smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed her whole face. "Good, because the galaxy is waiting, and I think humanity is going to do just fine." Kira fell asleep between them as the night went on, peaceful and safe. Outside, two worlds celebrated the beginning of a new era. Inside, a human, an alien child, and her warrior mother sat together in comfortable silence. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. Sometimes helping one lost child can save an entire world. And sometimes, the best way to reach the stars is simply to be a good person. Day understood that now. And as he looked at his alien friends and out at the ship that would carry humanity to the stars, he knew that the future was going to be extraordinary.